where you and I have the Buddha mind, and then as you notice, about chapter 4 is about faith and understanding, and the parable of the poor son. So in this particular episode, Master say here in the initial verse, he said the Buddha has Prajna as his mind, and it's now a turning point in his teachings. And a turning point in his teaching, and this, try to understand what he mean by just a turning point. See, the turning point is when the major shift, if you like, and the apex of a new level of teaching. And so there are very many turning points. Same thing as we go in our spiritual practice, there are various turning points in our life of practice. So, and here, if you constantly reflect upon yourself as to where you grow in your practice, then you know where a turning point is and be able to recognize that. So our mind must embody the Buddha's mind and follow the Buddha's intent. And this is the part that the Buddha felt that his original intent can slowly mature. He taught the true Dharma for Bodhisattvas that you and I are no different, and that's where the highlight is you and I are no different in the Buddha nature. In accord with the principles and the truth, all Dharma is a Tathagata Gapa nature, which is a truth, the Buddha nature that is intrinsic in all of us. Now, we very often hear Master say in the nature of true suchness and Buddha nature is intrinsic for all of us. But you must understand that during that time, that was not apparent. And even for us now that we've been told what it is, I don't think it's easy to take in the deep meaning and the profound meaning in understanding that. So the Prajna Sutras contain many teachings. The Prajna Sutras are basically talking about the great vehicle, contain many teachings, analyzing about the truth is without substance or appearance, meaning that there's no form. So, and then if you, and I try to understand this and relate to what the Heart Sutra says, and a part of the Heart Sutra saying there's no cause, no end, no path, and there is no knowledge and no attainment. So then what is it then we are in practicing? And that is saying, if the intrinsic nature is already in you, what then is for you to attain? So we all have the Buddha mind, and we all intrinsically have the Buddha nature. It is such just that our awakened nature has been covered by ignorance. So in other words, if that awakened nature refers to the Buddha nature, is already covered by ignorance and afflictions. So the whole path is about what? It's not about gaining something. It's not about some substance that you're gaining. It's about losing. What are you losing? And that's part. That is the part that we really need to understand what we are practicing to lose. All beings can be delivered because all have the nature of true suchness. So as we learn the Buddha's way, we must take it to heart. We must not take it in and immediately forget that we must truly apply, internalize the Dharma. Truly apply and internalize the Dharma is therefore, are we seeking for what's outside? Are we seeking to be seen in whatever we are doing? And instead, if the nature of true suchness is within you, go inside, and that's where we need to truly apply and internalize the Dharma. So show compassion equally to all. Now, when we show compassion equally to all and earnestly cultivate the practice for the sake of suffering beings in the next line, then what is it that we are actually doing when we go out to do all these activities and all the work? Number one is that be there to humble yourself. When you go out there to humble yourself and be in practice and to give away all that you have, we are actually in the practice of losing our ego, losing our pride, open up our heart. And all this practice, as you engage in all the activities outside, then we need to apply the teaching as when we practice in all the activities that Master has laid out for us in the Suchi Dhamma lineage. And here, this is the part that when we get in the samadhi or practice, then we mindfully be aware that when you serve, you know what you serve, and you serve what you know. So the lessons learned in here is that wisdom is seeking Bodhi. Seeking Bodhi meaning the Bodhi mind, the bodhicitta mind, that of the mind that the Buddha is considered benefiting oneself. We must continuously listen to the Dharma and better understand it. This benefits us, and that is the understanding of the Dharma that will then benefit us. Compassion is transforming sentient beings. This is considered benefiting others. Thus, we have begun to learn to exercise both compassion and wisdom. And so, when we understand the Dharma, so we practice inside out and outside in. So when we practice inside out, we awaken, we go inside with the Dharma to awaken our intrinsic nature. And we practice outside in when we interact outside with people. And so when we go out to benefit others, we then try to relate back to the worldly ways of doing things. The worldly way of doing things, we grasp, we outbeat others. So everything is for self-interest. When we turn it around and say that it's for the benefit of others, so we lose what you call the worldly convention and the worldly ways that hold us back in samsara. So when we release the chain or the bondage of samsara by benefiting others. So therefore, everyone that we benefit become our spiritual benefactors as a result of this. So we seek the Buddha's way and transform sentient beings. You can teach Prajna Sutras to people like this to turn the bodies, to turn to the Bodhisattva teachings. So this Prajna Sutra, as I mentioned, referring to the great vehicle, and to do so, we learn to cultivate compassion. So, and then Master said, you and I are no different in this. This is obviously a quote coming from the chapter for the Lotus Sutra. Master explained that there are four meanings to this. One is liberation is no different. Liberation is no different between one who seek enlightenment, whether as the Buddha or ourselves. So second is that the realization of the principle, again, is no different. All principles are the same, they are equal. So therefore, the understanding of those principles in the Dharma is no different, whether it is understanding from the mind of the Buddha or ourselves. And so obviously, why is that the case? Because again, back to the point that the Buddha mind is intrinsic in all of us, the mind of the Buddha. And that's part of it is not the thinking mind. So we misunderstand because the thinking mind lies in the sixth consciousness, whereas the mind of Buddha is in the ninth consciousness. So therefore, for us to reach the ninth consciousness, we need, that's why in the earliest teachings, for us to reach there, we need to eliminate afflictions first, because we are covered by all this thing, which is deposited in number 7 and 8 consciousness. So for us to reach there, we need to purify our habitual tendencies, we need to purify our karmic seeds. The teaching of Dharma is no different. And obviously then the teaching of Dharma is about coming from the mind of the Buddha. For the Father and the Son are no different. The Father and Son intrinsic nature are fundamentally no different. And that is where the fundamental part of chapter 4 is about, is that for us to understand that intrinsic nature, or that nature of true suchness, the Buddha nature, the pure nature, the Tathagata nature, inherent in all of us, or intrinsic in all of us. So the pure nature of true suchness is something we all intrinsically have. It's not something people can teach us. Now, you may recall that I've mentioned this before. It's important to understand this particular line. It is not something people can teach us, nor is something other people can give us, or something that Buddha specifically gave. Not even the Buddha can give you the nature of true suchness. It's buried within us. We ourselves have to unearth that nature of true suchness. So therefore, the truth is in the Dharma. So the principles are in the Dharma. The truth is found in those principles. So how do we get to the truth? It's through realization. And that's the word there, realization. Okay, and that realization is realizing the truth is for us to understand the teachings well. So it's from that understanding you grow in realization, but that realization will not be profound unless you apply that into practice and you go back to the realization. And that's another turning point in your realization. And there will be a series of turning points until you reach that point, that level of non-retreating practice. And that's the watershed moment of your practice. So in contemplation, and this is about encountering a great teacher. Even a humble encounter of a great teacher is a teaching itself, and that is that of humility. So same thing with the four great disciples when encountering the great teacher. And that when he recognized, but sometimes because we are now living in this period of time when the Buddha is not around, so we need to understand that. So one cannot see a humble teacher with the worldly eyes. Because why? Because we see it with appearances. So we see with your heart, feel with your ears. The silence of humility is a loud teaching of the nature of question one should ask. Why have said the silence of humility? Remember in the initial words the master said, this the teaching has no appearance, there's no form, there's no substance. And that's what Dharma is. So the intrinsic pure nature resides deeply within us, and that is where the true nature of true suchness is. So it is from the deep silence of the heart that one needs to listen to the questions deeply if one then have to realize what the truth is. So on relationship, this is about ego in a relationship. The ego has to be bullied, bashed up, beaten up, and broken up to change. Otherwise, we think the ego, which is ourself, we think we are the one. So unless the ego has been humbled and tamed, the self-centeredness will continue to yearn for center of attention in your life. Everything that the ego wants, ego gets. Undress the egoistic robe to reveal the pure nature in you. And that's also why this one buried our true nature. Why all this layer and constellation is because of our self-centeredness. So it is time for you to venture within to let the greater you to arise, the one that is the pure nature. We start with arising the non-self. Remember this yesterday I spoke about the non-self is actually the greater self. The pure nature is noble and is ever humble, gentle, charitable, and hospitable, and always give way to others. So one is ever then approachable in a relationship. Okay, Garland brother and sister, thank you.
Kanan, so much, Brother Chin, how to humble our ego. Yeah, indeed. All of us, one way or another, we have this ego in us.